Hey y'all, welcome into this week's mini episode of Convos with Callie. Recently I heard something that really stuck in my mind. If your life was a movie, what would the audience be screaming at the screen, telling you to do? My lifetime movie audience would probably have a lot of things to say, but two are top of mind, and they're this. You're so close. Don't give up. Don't give in. The other one would be, no, not him again. You deserve better. Don't go back. Coincidentally, these are two areas that I'm really working on setting boundaries in. Yep, the magic word. Boundaries help us protect our energy, honor our needs, and honestly, they just keep us from losing our minds. We talked about boundaries on the last full episode of Biscuits and Sunshine, and I thought we would expand a bit this week. Setting boundaries isn't always easy, especially if you're used to people pleasing or if certain relationships have taught you that saying no makes you difficult or selfish. So, we're going to break it down today and talk about how to create strong yet flexible boundaries. We want boundaries that feel good and actually stick without being so rigid that we get stuck. First things first, before you can set a boundary, you have to know what you actually need. And that means slowing down and checking in with yourself. Ask these questions. What drains me? What energizes me? What am I saying yes to out of obligation instead of genuine desire? Where am I selling myself short? Boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about protecting what truly matters to you. For example, if alone time after work is non-negotiable for your mental health, that's a boundary. Or if certain conversations leave you feeling like a deflated balloon, maybe it's time to set limits on how often you engage. But once you understand your boundaries, how do you actually communicate them without feeling like a total jerk? A question I also asked myself. What I've found is that it comes down to this. Be clear, but be kind. Use I statements like, I need some downtime in the evening, so I'm not going to be answering calls after 8 p.m. That way, you're focused on your needs and not blaming the other person for interrupting your evening. Boundaries are not about telling people what they can't do. They're about stating what you will and won't do. No drama, just clarity. One thing that took me a while to understand about boundaries is they don't have to be set in stone. A good question to ask yourself is this. Am I making this adjustment because I want to or because I feel guilty? Yeah, that was a big one for me. For example, if you usually say no to last-minute plans because you need structure, which is totally understandable, but a friend is in town for only one night, you might choose to make an exception. That's flexibility, but if you're constantly saying yes at the expense of your own well-being, that's a problem. So if you get clearer on your boundaries, you work to communicate them kindly, but you also recognize that there is flexibility in them, the last important thing to remember is that not everyone will love your boundaries, especially if they've benefited from you having none. But here's the thing. When people push back, it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It just means they're adjusting. And how their adjustment goes says more about them than it does about you. When this happens, you don't have to over-explain or profusely apologize. Usually, a simple, no, that just doesn't work for me. That's enough. So as we bring this week's convo to a close, there's really one simple takeaway. You are allowed to set boundaries, and you don't have to feel guilty for protecting your peace. If you think about an audience watching the movie of your life, it helps gain clarity on the areas that you need to improve on. My imaginary audience is really helping me set those boundaries. Seeing it through their eyes helps me understand where I really am selling myself short. For example, if something feels creative and freeing, I try my best not to give up the pursuit of it, because I know there's magic in the dedication we give to our soul's calling. Even if I'm frustrated or disappointed, I do my very best not to walk away. If I meet someone and I don't feel energized or loved or at peace in their presence, I don't give them access to my heart or much of my time. I've realized I need these things to be my best self, and I'm not asking anything more than what I give. I remember hearing growing up, rejection is often God's protection. And as an adult, I've realized rejection is not an invitation to try harder. Again, strong boundaries aren't about shutting people out. They're about making sure we have the energy and space we need to show up as our best, most authentic selves. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend who might need a little boundary boost. Also, don't forget to subscribe. We'll be back next week with a full episode of Biscuits and Sunshine. Take care of yourself, set those boundaries, and we'll see you soon. Until next time.